What if you died today and then came back and had a second chance at living your life again? What would you change? Today's guest, Jeff Luther, died in front of his 16-year-old son. He was dead for a full 8 minutes. And when he came back to life, he realized he had a second chance at life. And he changed everything. Excited for you because you don't have to die to learn what you're going to learn today on how to live your life as if you died and came back and had a second chance. Let's rock. Welcome to the Good Mood Revolution. I'm your host, Matt O'Neill, and I've spent the last 15 years mastering the art of lasting happiness. Look, happiness isn't just a feeling, it is a skill, and it's a skill that you can learn and master. This show is your training ground. Let your Good Mood Revolution begin now. What if you had a second chance at life? I've always loved A Christmas Carol because I just love this idea that we could live our life kind of asleep to what's really important and then get some type of a spiritual awakening and have a chance, like Ebenezer Scrooge on Christmas Day, to come back and do it the right way. Well, today we've got a guest who lives literally stone's throw away from me, and he's had a second chance at life. And he says that he spent his second life as an amazing father who's focused on leaving people better than he found them. I want to welcome Jeff Luther to Good Mood Revolution. Jeff, what's up, my man?
How are you, Matt? Thank you so much.
Oh, dude, I am so excited to have this conversation with you. I don't know all the details of your story, but I'm intrigued. So let's get into it. Tell us what does this mean, a second life?
Let's do it. On June the 5th, 2021, I ran, I did the Hellhole in Francis Marion, did the Hellhole. I did the 50K, the overnight race. I showed up to that race to win. So that tells you I'm a fit dude. Like, I was there to win. I didn't. I came in second, but 18 of us started, 6 of us finished. It was the hardest race I've done. So I took a week off. And then that following week, June the 12th, the Saturday, I was in a CrossFit gym. I was doing a partnered workout. For any of your listeners that understand CrossFit and doing partnered workouts, like, you work really close with your partner. You count reps. You have to know what they're doing so you know when to start. And if you get an advantage on your partner, you can like really hurt them. My partner was my 16-year-old son. So we were working pretty close together. We were doing wall balls. And at the time, he was a little bit smaller and he was doing a smaller weight. So we had 2 separate wall balls that we were using. He was a couple of posts away from me on the rig. And I was doing wall balls and I got this palpitation in my neck. And I was like, oh man, this is kind of weird. So I stopped for a second. I started feeling a little bit faint, and then it kept going. And it had happened a couple of times on some long runs, but it just was really quick. So it kept going. I was like, all right, this will stop in a second. And it didn't. So I was like, man, I got to take a knee. And I'm not that guy. Like, I would never take a knee in a workout. So I did. I took a knee and I'm sitting there like getting lightheaded, and I would come to and get lightheaded. And I remember the dude beside me was lifting. So he wasn't doing the workout, but he was right beside me in the rig, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, hey, are you okay? And I'm not that guy. Like, I'm the distant guy, don't touch me, that kind of thing. And so when he put his hand on my shoulder, I was like, look, man, I'm scared. I'm vulnerable. I don't know what's happening. Why don't you get your hand off of me? And then in an instant, like instantly, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. I'm vulnerable. I don't know what's happening. Please don't take your hand off of me. And it kept getting worse. So I went to 2 knees. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to lay down. So, and this is the middle of a workout, music blaring, all of that. I remember everything. So I started to lay down. As I'm laying down, the last thing I see is my son's shoes, his white Metcons, walking across the gym floor, and I'm going down. And all I could think was, I've got to get up. And dude, it's not like the movies. In the movies, you see that last little surge of energy and they get up. It's like all your hydraulic fluid is gone. Like you can't do anything. And I was out. That was it. Somebody just walked up and turned the lights out. What happened was my heart. I have a bad electrical signal in my heart. I can talk more about that, but that's the boring details. So my heart went into atrial fibrillation. It's beating at like 380 beats a minute was what was recorded. So it just quivers. It doesn't pump blood. So that was happening. That electrical signal was locked up. So I wasn't getting any blood pumping through my body and I was just out. So, everybody's running around me. They're trying to get me to come to. It was in June. So, I mean, you know how hot it is here in June and I'm in a gym in the corner. So they're putting ice on me. And then after about 4 minutes, they get the AED. And my son's still around me. They're giving me chest compressions. I'm gray at this point, no pulse, no breath. And they put the AED on me and shocked me. And the first shock didn't work. And those things give an audible flatline when it doesn't work. So my son's standing over me. He loses his mind. And they all just gave up. They're like, oh my God, he's dead. And then it rereads it continues to search for a heart rate. And then after about a minute, if it finds any kind of rhythm, it'll shock you again. So it shocked me again. And allegedly the second one didn't work. And I don't know the details here. Allegedly the second one didn't work. My son says the second one didn't work. And so they had to shock me a third time. But I came to, obviously I made it. And
thank God.
And yeah, cause we wouldn't have this episode, right?
Dude, that's crazy. That is so how traumatic for your son.
Yeah, dude,
man. So then you have died. How long were you out?
8 minutes. It was a little over 8 minutes. And I had what is called sudden cardiac death. You have sudden cardiac arrest and you have sudden cardiac death. So I'm one of the few that had sudden cardiac death and lived to tell about it. So yeah, and it shows up. There's when you have the AED, they do a printout, like the little thing with all the lines on it for your heart. And that's how they figured out. There's more to the story as far as my diagnosis, but that's how they figured out my heart rate was like 386. So it was just quivering and not beating. But I think what my saving grace is it would beat. Like it would quiver and quiver and quiver, and then I would get a beat, and it would just pump enough blood through my body to get some oxygen. And they were doing chest compressions.
Dude, it's so good they had the paddles at the gym.
Man. Yeah,
if they didn't have the paddles at the gym, that was it.
Yeah, and I look for those things everywhere I go. Now, you buy a red Honda and you see red Hondas everywhere. So now I have cognitive bias over defibrillators.
Yeah, you can spot them. You're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. I'm good here. If I take a knee, I'm good. I see it.
Yeah. So I'm at the hospital and they're immediately like, again, this doesn't make sense. You're a fit guy, all these things. And I said, well, I just ran an ultra the week before. Maybe that was it. And they're like, no, because you don't have protein or something like that. There's a protein in your heart if you have cardiac arrest that releases into your blood. So I had none of those things. So they started down the path of alleged drug use. They were trying to figure out what drugs I was on. It was very demoralizing, a very demeaning experience. So I went through all of that, and I'm there from Saturday until Tuesday before I got a diagnosis. So the doctor comes in and says, I got great news. We know what's wrong with you. We figured it all out. This is my electrophysiologist. He said, you have ARVC. It's arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy. It's like, all right. So he talks to me a little bit about it. And then he said, your exercise regimen is going to change, but we'll talk more about that. I just wanted to let you know. So the next steps are we're going to have you in surgery tonight. You're getting a defibrillator installed so this doesn't happen to you again. I was like, well, what does this mean? Like, what? I don't understand. He said, well, exercise exacerbates your condition. You have a arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy. So the heart wall on your right ventricle is enlarged. And every time you exercise, it gets infiltrated with fat and scar tissue. So that's messing up your electrical signal. And the more you exercise, the worse it gets. So you will, from now on, be limited to yoga and golf when you exercise. It's like, wow, that's not going to work. I don't think you understand. I will not be limited to yoga and golf. So that started, I didn't know it at the moment, but that started a pretty serious downward spiral for me. I've had my surgery, got out of the hospital, had to wait 30 days. I had surgery, had to wait 30 days. So my 30 days was up, and I did what any smart male athlete would do. I went to the gym. And I went with my son, of all things. He was really pushing me. He was pushing some stuff down. So he was really pushing me to get back to the gym. So we go back. My first day back, we do a barbell complex. It's the bear complex. It's a series of movements that you do without dropping a barbell. And it's pretty heavy weight. And Matt, it happened again. Like my first trip back to the gym, it happened again. And I got faint. And I almost passed out, and my heart came out of it on its own. But I can tell you that taste that I had in my mouth that morning when it happened originally, that is what death tastes like. It's when all the blood goes out. The blood goes out of your head first. So that's obviously the highest point. It's when all the blood goes out of your head, and then when it comes back, you can taste the blood coming back into your head. That's what it was. So I wish I didn't know it, but I do.
But you do.
Yeah.
So was it the defibrillator? Is that what brought you back?
No, my heart came out of that bad rhythm on its own, that bad sequence. So that was another piece of it. I was like, oh my gosh, they put this faulty defibrillator in me. It didn't work, but it takes 2 minutes. So it has to detect a bad rhythm for a minute, and then it spools for a minute, and then it shocks you. And I was only in a bad rhythm for 48 seconds. So nothing happened. And it was just, that was a real psychological blow to me, because now I was scared this thing would never work. So at that point, I became scared to take a shower. I became scared to walk up steps. I became scared to drive. Like, that was the biggest changing point for me.
The wait is finally over. The Good Mood Revolution book is officially available for pre-order on Amazon today. You can go to Amazon and look for Good Mood Revolution book. And in this book, you're going to find the 8 bad moods that get in the way of your happiness. You're going to learn strategies on how to overcome each of these 8 negative thoughts. They're all lies anyway. And then what the thought patterns are that make us happy every single day. You're also going to learn strategies that can make you really feel fulfilled in your life and make other people around you feel fulfilled as well. So go on Amazon, look for Good Mood Revolution book, and order yours today.
Here's what I know for sure. And I don't mean this to be terse. I mean it very matter of fact. People don't care what happens to you. Not that they don't care, but they can't get that emotion that you get. So people don't care what happens to you, but they do care how you respond. And that's what I had to focus on. People are watching. My boys were watching. I have 3 boys, and they were watching. How was I going to respond to this thing? That's when I had to say, okay, well, I have to find gratitude. If gratitude is not going to fall out of the sky, because that was this perception that I had, right? Gratitude just falls out of the sky. It's all these huge things. If it's not going to fall out of the sky into my lap, then I have to go find it. And that's what I did.
I'll tell you, like, it makes a ton of sense why you were bitter and resentful and angry and in a downward spiral. I mean, your identity was wrapped up in doing these ultra marathons and being the fittest guy in the gym and winning races. And if you didn't have that, like, you lose your identity. And who am I? Who am I without that? And anyone that goes through an experience and maybe they lose their career and their career's taken from them, and then they lose their identity. Anyone that loses their identity, it's an identity crisis, and you have to find yourself again. But I love what you said about the second piece, that, I should be grateful, and because I'm not, I'm a piece of junk. I'm worthless here because I should be grateful, but I'm not. And we do this to ourselves all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do it to myself. The person listening, they do it to their self. When we're feeling emotions that are bad, quote unquote bad, we're feeling negative emotions, and we feel like we should feel positive emotions.
Yeah.
That idea that we should feel better makes it even worse, because now we're saying, hey, I shouldn't feel bad. I should feel good, but I can't feel good. And so that, who am I and what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And so I talk about this with people a lot. I coach people on happiness. And the first thing I say is, whatever emotion you're feeling is the emotion you should be feeling. And it doesn't do any good to say that this emotion isn't right. It is right. Yeah. This is the emotion that you're in. You're in it for a reason. This emotion is here for a reason. And then, and when we can figure out that reason, then we can probably clear this emotion.
Yeah.
And we can start to choose some other emotions. But if what we do is we start to add guilt on top of whatever other negative concoction we've got going on, we're just making the negativity even worse, because now there's this guilt and this self-judgment that says, I'm so bad, I can't even be good. And it like gets worse and worse and worse. So so tell me, how did you, I like this idea. You wanted to be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
You wanted to be a good example for your boys, and you wanted to feel like the man that they could look up to. And I whatever it takes, man, when we're down on our luck, I don't care where the inspiration comes from, but you find whatever that inspiration is. And for you, it was doing the right thing so your boys could see the way that you'd stand back up. That's awesome. So how did you start to find gratitude if it wasn't going to find you?
So it was in the little things, and like every piece, I had to really research this disease. Every piece that I discovered, I would celebrate it. Every time I figured out exercises that I could do, I would celebrate it. Every time I actually did something, I would celebrate it. Because, I'm going from running a sub 6 mile and deadlifting my twice my body weight to not being able to run. And when we fall, theoretically, when we fall, our ego falls faster and harder than we do. And that's the piece that really took me down. When I started running again, my coach was getting me to run. I would run 30 minutes at a talking pace. That's like a 10.5-minute mile. I was so arrogant that I was like, I'm not even going to do this. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm actually out on a trail with my dog running. What am I thinking? And I had to take those little bitty pieces and realize like how amazing and how lucky I was. And then things started to click. It didn't make it easier. It didn't make me not bitter or not sad, but then it started to click. And I really had to make an effort to lock my ego down in the basement and look at the gift that I had.
So in my book, in my framework, the antidote to the ego is humility. And it's the foundation of all positive moods. And in humility, this is where, like, you were humbled, literally. For me, my belief is God humbled you, or your higher self or your soul called for it and said, hey, I need to learn a lesson, and I can't learn it any other way than going through this experience. And then from that humbled position, that at that point, you started to access all the good moods. So let's talk about how you built back up. So you started this was brilliant. I want the person listening to take note. You started to celebrate all the small things.
Yeah. I can tell you the exact moment that clicked for me. The son that I was doing the workout with, the one that was with me when all this happened, he's a huge CrossFitter. He was like number 300 and something in the world in the teens in one of the years. So that is his thing, and he wanted me to get back into it. He wanted me to work out, and it wasn't in the cards. So I did a lot of research, did a lot of planning. Finally figured out there's a bunch of things that are bad for my heart or are bad for this disease that I allegedly have. neurotransmitters are bad. So all the things you get from exercise, endorphins, catecholamines, all those things that we get, the chemical things that we get, are not good for me. So I had to figure out how to control those, how to control adrenaline. So I found a coach, said, all right, these are the things I can do. I need to do it at a gym where no one is there. And this is how slow we need to go. So went back to the gym. And this was after it had happened that second time.
Well, Jeff, success leaves clues. And I want our listener to catch, there's another thing that you did here. You said, what can I do now?
Right.
What can I do? And rather than just, because you definitely could have just become a victim, and you could have stayed bitter, and then you could have fallen into drugs or alcohol for sure.
Yep.
I mean, it could have been a choice. I'm just going to give up. My grandfather fell on hard times, and he just gave up and went to the bottle, and then ended his life that way. And so that was a choice. That was an option. And you didn't choose that choice. You said, I'm going to find a way to make the best of this circumstance.
Yeah.
And another thing that success leaves clues, just to connect another dot here, is you researched everything you could, and then you decided to hire someone that knew more than you. You hired a coach. Yeah. And I'm a huge, like, for me, anytime I'm doing something, I'm like, who in the world does this the best?
Yeah.
And there's someone out there that knows this. And if I could take their 20 years of knowledge and compress it by just having a few conversations with them, that's what a coach can do.
Yeah.
And so you may have compressed time. You may have gained 10 years of knowledge by hiring this guy. So I always recommend it's always worth the investment if you find the best person for what you were trying to do, and they can just show you the way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So tell me how it went. Was it slow going at first?
Dude, it was all right. So I go to the gym, and now remember, after it happened that second time, I'm scared to take a shower. I'm scared to walk up steps. I mean, I am living in fear. I really am. And that is just not my style. Mm-hmm. And it was consuming me. So I go to the gym, and he says, all right, so hop on the bike and just bike for 4 minutes. So I get on the bike, and I feel it. You know, I'm telling myself this. I'm already remembering a future that hasn't happened, right? So I'm telling myself all this stuff, and I feel my heart rate start to pick up. I'm like, oh man, this is such a terrible idea. So we start the workout, get off the bike, start the workout. I'm nervous. It's me and him. And then there's one girl there. She's got a client that's coming, and they're going to go different room, the whole bit. So I start the workout, and the first thing is kettlebell swings, just American swings. I'm just doing kettlebell swings. It was like do 10 and rest for a second or whatever it was. So I pick up these kettlebells, or this kettlebell, and I do these kettlebell swings, and I got the first set done, and I set it down. I said, I'm done. I quit. And I'm bawling, crying, Matt, like bawling, crying, you know, like a 5-year-old that just got a spanking. And I couldn't do anything. And I said, I quit. I'm done. And I'm telling you the truth. I became a quitter right then. And I was totally fine with it. I quit. And I hope anyone listening to this, I hope you never, ever, ever feel that, ever. So he said, all right, you quit, but let's end on a good note. So just give me 30 seconds of work. And I said, no, you don't understand. I quit. I'm done. He said, I get it. I've got 4 hours here. I'll wait. Just give me 30 seconds. So we end on a good note. And there was some back and forth. There was some cussing, and there was some yelling. And, you know, I haven't told too many people this, but I said, all right, I'll give you 30 seconds. And I did it with a total FU attitude. And I was really hoping something bad was going to happen.
Sure.
And it's shameful to say that.
No, I mean, it's just the truth. Yeah. Like so, you had told, it was a battle of wills at this point.
Yeah.
And even though you were relenting, you were trying to show him that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And that you should quit. And this is so interesting. We always want to be right. You know, the ego in us always wants to be right. So you were saying, I quit because I'm saving my life. And you had this belief that you needed to quit to protect yourself. He was saying, he was saying, no, you got more in you. You're just a little bit scared about it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know myself better than you. And that's it. Basically at that moment you're saying, I hope something happens so he can see I was right.
Yep.
And it's kind of cool when we notice this, because I always want to be right because I have a big ego too. I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying I have a big ego sometimes. And one of my favorite lines is, would I rather be right or would I rather be happy?
Yeah.
And in this case, I'm sure you're grateful that you weren't right, and that quitting was probably not the right answer.
It was not. It was so not the right answer. So I agreed. I gave him 30 seconds, and I did kettlebell swings for 30 seconds, and I stopped and I set it down. He said, "That's amazing. That's amazing. You did it. We ended on a win. We're done." And I'm starting to get it together here now. I'm just wiping snot off my face. I'm getting it. It was so bad. It was so dramatic. Like,
what a coach, man. You're lucky. You're lucky you have him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's Phil Galaska is the dude. He's amazing. So he celebrated my win, and I was like, hold up. I think I got 30 more seconds. So he said, cool. So I did 30 more seconds. And he said, all right, we're done. How do you feel? I said, nah, I got 30 more. He said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this whole workout. We're going to do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And this workout was, it was like, I think it took us 50 minutes, but I did the whole thing, 30 seconds on and 30 seconds off.
Wow.
But every time I got that small 30-second workout, that was a win. That was a total win. And so then I was in control. And I know control sometimes can be misconstrued, particularly if you have a male audience, but that I was in control. I was the one that was choosing. Nothing was being chosen for me. And that's where it all started to click. I had choice.
That's awesome, man. Are you looking to take your happiness to another level? If you're looking to be more successful, we need to be happier, because success and happiness go hand in hand. But sometimes we get stuck in thought patterns we don't even know are holding us back. And we need a coach or a mentor to see things we can't see with our own eyes. I've had coaches and mentors help me access levels of happiness I couldn't have achieved without them. I'm now offering that same service to a small, select number of people. If you think one-on-one coaching could elevate your happiness, go to mattoneil.com and click the coaching tab to learn more. I look forward to talking with you. You have now used your second life to become the most amazing father and help people become better versions of themselves. When was that awakening for you, that you're like, oh man, I got a second chance at life now? How am I going to live it?
There's 5 big things that I learned from dying. I do know that one of those things is they're suffering too. Everybody has their shit they drag around. And I'm sorry for the language, but they do. Everybody's dragging something around. And when we realize that, now we have compassion. And if we can just be a little more compassionate, that makes our life better and it makes their life better. So I think that's where I started to realize it, when I was like, okay, it just took that little win for me to feel better about my life, about now I have choice, now I have control. And if I have choice, then that takes away my excuses. So then I thought, okay, well, who else is dealing with this? Who else has this ego that they feel like they have to feed? And I think that was one of the most profound things for me, is that everybody's dragging something around.
Interesting. Yeah, it's another gift for us, because when you're on top of the world, and you were totally on top of the world before this, I'm sure you had your struggles and you had your challenges in life, just like we all do. But you just ran a 50K and got second. Like you were on top of the world, and then we get humbled, and the humbling isn't to harm us, it's to help us. And what it did is it showed you that, oh wow, maybe other people in the world are struggling just as mightily as I am.
Yeah.
And what a cool gift, because now instead of seeing people as wussies or weenies or whatever words that I used to use about it before I was humbled, I started to have compassion and be like, I don't know what you've been through. I know I've been through some hard things, but I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
And then not judge them,
Yep.
because I was very judgmental and
Yeah.
thinking people should just be better. All right.
Yeah.
So what are some other things you learned?
So this one thing I alluded to earlier is ask deep questions. With my son, I would ask him, "Hey man, are you okay? You okay with all that?" "Oh yeah. Yep." "All right. Yeah, you sure?" "Yeah." Well, what I learned is that was the answer I wanted to hear, right? A lot of times with parents, we do that with our kids. "Are you okay?" "Yes." Whew. Now I don't have to have a difficult conversation. But I had to ask him. He was a wrestler, and he had an issue where a kid got hurt in one of his matches, and it sent him over the edge. Like, he lost it. He was so sad, so concerned for this kid. Then he heard the siren of the ambulance, and I didn't know this, but he couldn't. He was like, every time I hear an ambulance, I lose it. Like, I can't hold it together. So now I knew we had an issue from what he saw with me.
Sure.
So then I had to ask him.
How could he not, man?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. In hindsight, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. How'd I let that slide through the cracks? But the way I got to him, because on the surface, I was doing what I thought was, no, that's not true. On the surface, I was doing what one would allow themselves to believe was the right thing. But subsurface, I knew there was something. I just figured, if he's just telling me he's okay, then he's just telling me he's okay. And eventually he will be. And finally, I had to ask him one day, I said, "Hey, man, let me ask you this. When you get shocked with one of those things, do you really raise up off the ground?" He said, "Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, it knocked you off the ground, Dad." "Oh, my gosh, what did that look like?" He's like, I don't even want to tell you. I don't want to talk about it. It's like, oh, yeah, I get it. I get it. And then you heard that sound, right? Like, everybody tells me about the flat line. You heard that, right? "Yeah, that's how I knew you were dead. That's what told me you were dead." It's like, wow. And that's when you kind of lost it, right? "Yeah." So, well, who grabbed you? Because my weightlifting coach, actually, she was telling me that she had to grab him and take him away. I said, "Well,
Yeah.
who grabbed you?" He said, "Jen." It's like, wow, really? Like, she had to pick you up? What happened?
What an amazing dad. You were such an amazing dad to not take the "I'm fine" at surface level and to keep coming at it in different angles until you finally broke through. And it's brilliant the way you finally broke through. I'm a father of 4, and one of mine doesn't like to talk much,
Yeah.
and she's the toughest.
Yeah.
And she's an athlete, and she's super tough. She prides herself on being tough, and
Yeah.
and I have to continue to try with her as well, because she won't talk
Yeah.
about things that are bothering her. But I just applaud you for figuring out a way to get your son to open up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's how I started I was like, wow, all right. He saw a lot. And I didn't allow myself to see that, I think. And I'm taking blame like it's all my fault. I don't mean that. But I just didn't allow myself to see the potential of what he saw. It just, I never processed that. Like I said at the beginning of your show, the dying part was easy. I didn't have to deal with any of the collateral damage. So then the more I talked to him, the more I realized that he had some pain that he was going through and he needed to get out. And I think even to hear him tell it, that conversation he and I had that day was probably the best conversation he's had ever. He just talked about everything, but it was prompting. He was telling me a story, and that's the way I made it. I was like, I'm putting this talk together, so I want these details. Just tell me, just answer my questions. You have to tell me anything. Just answer my questions. And it was a long talk. It was great. It was amazing.
That's awesome. All right, what's the third thing that you learned?
Do the damn thing.
Do the damn thing.
Yeah, just do the damn thing. So, like with my kids, all right, so you haven't done it, and I want you to get with me. Be with me. Let's close our eyes. Let's imagine it's a year from now, 1 year from now. It's December the 13th. We're standing here in the driveway. It's 1 year from now, and you still haven't done it. How does that feel?
Bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you say, okay, 1 year from now, we're standing out here in the driveway because we're reading a letter, and that letter tells you your life just changed. And because your life just changed, you're no longer able to do that thing. How does that feel?
Oh, man, I better do it now.
Yeah. Do the thing, man. Do the damn thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And you learned life is short. I mean, you learned that more than any of us. And so if we delay, we might not get to it.
Here's my rebuttal to that, because I will tell you, Matt, and look, dude, this is a safe place for me. I just understand I'm being totally vulnerable. I'm telling you like all my inner thoughts. Mm-hmm. There was a point where life became really, really long for me in all of this. So my rebuttal to life is short is for some people it gets really long, but I do know that death is real. Like I know that now. And we all talk about it, but it's just this superficial thing. But I know that death is real. It doesn't wait for an invitation. It doesn't wait for the right time. It doesn't call ahead to see if it's okay. It just shows up, and there is nothing you can do. No amount of fitness will keep it from you.
Yeah, that's profound, man. And I remember Steve Jobs, when he was on his deathbed, he said, "I've got all this money, billions of dollars, and it can't save me."
Yeah.
And so maybe he was amassing all this money thinking that would be an answer to living longer. But I think you bring up a really good point, man. Like we're not getting out of here alive. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's such a tangled web. Right. And that's the thing, like that. That's what I love about what you're doing, about your show. It's like right here, we're going to be happy. So often, like you were talking about earlier with people that I should be this, I should be this. Well, we're remembering a future that hasn't happened yet. How do you know you should be? Just feel the emotion that you have. You're having it for a reason. I love that.
We're here now. Well, man, Jeff, I'm so glad we're friends. We got to actually hang out in person. I'll come do some kettlebell swings with you.
I love it.
But dude, it's just been an honor to hear your story. Thank you for being so vulnerable. I know my life has changed just listening to your insights, and I'm sure the people listening, the person listening has taken away as much profound impact as I have. If someone wants to learn more from you, how could they get in touch?
JD Luther 2.0 is my Instagram handle. And a lot of people contact me through heart disease. And I will say, like, I said earlier, people don't care what happens to you, and I don't care what happens to you, but any of your listeners that are dealing with anything like this, like, I want you to know that I care so deeply about anybody that's feeling any pain around ego or life-changing diagnosis, anything like that. And I'm not a great problem solver, but I'm an amazing listener, and I'm down for a chat with anybody if there's anything I can do to help.
Dude, you got a big heart, man. For real, you got a big heart. Yeah. It's working, and I'm so glad it is.
Yeah, me too. So now I've got this defibrillator in, man. I've got a safety net. Like, they doubled down on me.
Good, you got. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming out, and y'all, I appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode with Matt O'Neill.